listeners to the Mindful Living podcast. I'm your host, Sana, and this is the space where we explore stories every day, how they meet radical transformation. Now, listeners, today's episode, what I believe is going to be a masterclass in healing, grit, and glowing from the inside out. Our guest, Dr. Shirley Piccarreto, she is a powerhouse, not just a naturopath. She's a best-selling author, herbalist, and yogi. She's walking embodiment of what it means to fall, rise, and rebuild naturally. Now, after enduring multiple hip surgeries, slow healing fractures, and the gut wrenching grief of losing her movement, she didn't just bounce back, she blazed forward, listeners. From the trails of Nepal to the healing temples of India, from radio waves to mountain hikes, she has helped thousands reclaim vitality at any age. And she's here to remind us you are never too broken, too late, or too old to heal. So let's dive into this beautiful conversation on the mindful living. So, Dr. Shirley, as always, it is such an honor to have you here with us.
Well, thank you so much. It's more than my pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story and to hopefully, create inspiration for others who may need to hear what I have to say today.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Dr. Shirley, of course, I would love if you can take us back to that moment, where everything changed for you when yoga, hiking, movement were suddenly stripped from you. I mean, what was going through your mind in those early days of physical limitation?
Oh, there was a lot of fear. I'd actually just spent 3 weeks, in Cambodia, and, it was very hot there, of course, and we were, biking every day, and not so much hiking, but biking, and swimming, and, I felt great. I felt, I just had a little bit of twinge in my hip, but, nothing big or debilitating at all, and then I got home to the New York winters of, maybe 2 or 3 degrees, Fahrenheit, and within days, my hip just seized up and the pain was outrageous. It just went from 0 to 100 um, and I just tried to find some answers, with, the chiropractor and different healing and different herbs and all that, but I finally, came to the reality that, I needed, to have a surgeon and, so I had that hip surgery, but things went terribly downhill, after that.
Mm. And when you're known for being strong and vibrant, um, how did it feel to suddenly not be that person? Because when something is kind of stripped away from us, it takes a huge chunk of our identity. Um, was there any shame, anger, or disbelief, Dr. Shirley?
Yeah, it was all of those things. I actually felt, the shame. I felt some embarrassment because again, I've been a, doctor of naturopathy. I've taught, yoga and fitness and ever since my early 20s, so many, many, decades and all of a sudden I wasn't that person and I didn't have that identity. I experienced a depression for the first time in my life. I'm such a vibrant and outgoing person, but for the first time in my life, I didn't know, like, my goodness, what if I can never, do yoga again? What if I can never travel? And we travel, 5, 6, 7 weeks out of the years all over the world and spend my partner Mark and I spend my life. And, what if I can't, be that person? And then it became, well, who am I? Without that. And it was a dark period. It was winter here. It was cold, I was sad, I cried every day. I don't know, 60 days, something like that, I just, it was a deep, dark period, as we have, and, I do always think, "Well, I guess whatever I learn is I'll be able to teach somebody else," but, there was a shift in who I was and then who I had to be during that time, um, Yeah, it took a lot of mental fortitude as well as the physical actions as well too.
Definitely, definitely. I think more than the physical actions, it was more about mental because I mean physical implications they are obvious, but the kind of effect it puts on your mental strength, it kind of challenges you, you yourself, kind of at some point of time have no clue that who you are. So yes, I really love about what you just shared. It's like honest. It's just about not about people, but sometimes it's about losing parts of ourselves we thought were permanent. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And people, you know, even like, some family members are like, oh, if there was a lot of, judgment and, just about like, oh, Shirley, isn't okay. Well, if this could happen to anyone, Shirley's having a hip surgery. What? So it was all this kind of shock. But then also, I don't know, I somehow felt that people that I had a chink in my armor and, some people, not that anyone was happy, but, like, maybe it brought me down a peg or 2 because 'cause I've always kind of been out there and, been this other person, so, that was hard. I remember, someone saying to my daughter, "Oh, your mom looks like she's struggling," and she's like, "She is, she's in pain," but it was like people seemed, I know there was compassion, but there was also things said that made me, feel, less than, during that particular time.
Yeah, yeah. That can be yeah, it's kind of unique ways of compassion or maybe sympathy, but not, I don't think it could be it could be empathy. And Dr. Shirley, instead of rushing into conventional recovery models, you doubled down on your own natural protocols. um what was the first modality or ritual that you turned to, and why?
Yeah, I really set out, a whole program. There was a lot of push at the hospital for these opiates, these very strong painkillers, and
Thank
I
you.
just said I do not, want them. Like, well, do you want level 1 or 2? I said no. I'll start with some codeine. That's it, but nothing else. And I weaned off that fairly quickly. I didn't like how I felt with the meds. It made me feel even worse. Even the aspirins. So one of the first things that I did was to cleanse my body of the toxins because I knew because of the surgery, anesthesia, meds, and all that, that my liver was stressed and there was going to be toxins in my body. And I knew that that was also affecting my mood because when our liver is weak, we can feel sad and down. And I certainly, didn't need, any more of that. I bought myself, done some research on grounding mats, and it was just wonderful. And I found that on Amazon, and that helps to stimulate the earth's energy through your feet. And I would just sit, in my chair and sit on my grounding mat, and that. I love even to this day, although I don't use it as much, but I use that many times a day. It just was like plugging in a light. I just lit up, when I was with that. I actually purchased, which was a major purchase, an infrared sauna, for our home. But I figured, well, the whole system is probably not gonna be getting better. This will be good, for the years going forward. So, we still use that, 2 to 3 times a week, but deep sauna, deep heat, is very helpful for, for inflammation and helpful for the sweating and the detoxification, through the skin. So those are some of the I probably did, I'm not sure how many if you want me to talk about everything all at once, but those are the first 3 things, that I did.
No, but it was definitely time taking, not something like immediate or just suppressing the um pain from the outside, just like the painkillers that you didn't go for.
No, no painkillers, and I changed my diet soon too because I knew that there was an inflammation, obviously, in my in my body, and I needed to quell that, so I removed inflammatory foods, like sugars and flours, I didn't have alcohol for a very, very long time. So the food was a big part of it. I purchased what's called a red infrared light, like a wrap, and that was wonderful. Those are so helpful for people, and I wrapped that like around my hip area. I still put that on my back sometimes at night, and that does very, very, deep healing. In my supplements were, of course, my calcium, magnesium, my whole, boron, manganese, all is supported for the ligaments and the tendons for healing. And, I added those in. And then I did a lot of the mind work, as well too.
Hmm. Of course. And it's definitely um, holistic approach. And it's really great that you mentioned about the red light therapy, because I've really kind of discovered its benefits through so many conversations,
Mm,
that how beneficial actually it is. And it is accessible actually,
it
uh,
is. Yeah, it
mm,
definitely is.
yeah.
Yeah, I added in some what's called Previtalize, which is like a heavy turmeric, and that's very wonderful for inflammation. And then I
Yes.
started, I'd always done some meditating, but I knew I needed to really resume my practice as I was healing. I really couldn't walk. I couldn't really if we have 3 floors in our house, which isn't the best thing for healing after hip surgery. My partner, Mark, was lovely, with me, but I could, really hardly get up and down the stairs. Certainly couldn't do laundry. I couldn't go to the store. I would ask him to take me for a ride sometime like I was a dog. Yeah, I wanted to sit in the car and go for a ride, but it felt good, to see the outside. I started back with my gratitude practice, which, again, I've done back and forth, but I'm like, well, I need to really, there's a lot of wonderful things that are in my life. So I focused on that instead of, what wasn't okay. I did visualization, where there's like a big trail near my home that I, was visualizing that I was going to be on that trail again and I was going to be hiking and strong, not in all of that. And so I put all of these different, components together. And so bit by bit, things, started to shift for me.
Hmm. And was there any skepticism or pressure from your medical peers or even friends about going this route? Because often your loved ones or your doctors, like they did, they would say, I mean, this is medicine, and it's obviously better to, and the safest way to go, for taking a better solution or approach towards healing the pain. So was there any pressure from them?
There really wasn't, only because I really don't have a medical team. I didn't see a doctor, maybe it had been, over 30 years. So it was really the first time I was like thrown back in, and it really triggered my anxiety that I had, many, many years ago. And they were very like they were, like kind of forceful, like, well, you gotta take this or do this or and I
Mm,
was just like, I'm not doing that, and it's just not what I'm up to. And so, I just checked out, I just didn't. I mean, after I got the pain meds and I did need them in the beginning. I did need the codeine. It was rough, it was very, especially when I had the fractures. Because I had the hip surgery, then I had 2 fractures, and then I was completely in bed. I mean, immobile for weeks, and we were right in the middle of a big move. We were moving our house. And so, my lovely Mark, did so many wonderful, things. But it was really, I knew I was on my own, I knew I was going to be, but I'd always healed myself over the years of so many different things and thousands of clients. I'm like, well, I'm just a body and I need certain ingredients, so I got to work at that. And it was interesting. Just this morning, I was looking through, I write a lot of kind of goals and things. And during that period of time, I just found something I wrote, really, almost, yeah, 2 years ago, and it was all this visualization, like, my hips are strong, my back is strong, I love hiking and biking, and kind of all of this stuff about how I foresaw my body being, and oh, what a big smile because I looked down and, of course, it was all had, become my reality, and, I have, beautiful strength. We went to Italy last fall, and we walked 70 miles in 2 weeks. I live in an area of hiking and waterfalls and forest and all that, and I'm, back to doing all that. I honestly feel, fantastic every single day.
That is awesome, Dr. Shirley. That is really awesome. It's really it feels so powerful to reclaim your body through what you have always taught. Um, and it's incredibly humbling, when the healer becomes the one who is going through a healing journey themselves. So, in your experience, Dr. Shirley, I mean, what comes first? Is it mind over body or body over mind, like your physical strength or your mental resilience, or are they interlinked in surprising ways?
I would say absolutely interlinked. I think a lot of people don't believe they can get better. A lot of people are like, well, I had a client once and she's like, "Well, I am 32," and then, I have, clients, of course, in their 50s and 60s, and so many people don't believe, and then they're also told by their doctor. When I went to the chiropractor, he's like, "Well, surely, what do you expect? You are 64." I just looked at him. I actually said some, few things in my mind that were, not very kind. I'm like, I don't care how old I am. It has nothing to do with what I'm up to right now. Nothing. And so I did visit with massage. I did do chiropractic, as well too. So it was all of the things together. I don't know for me that anything necessarily came first. I just kept, adding things on. And that's with the clients that I work with now, primarily over 50. I just really caution them. Don't feel like you have to go out and do everything in 2 weeks or a month. It's bit by bit, it's a path that we walk on, and we cleanse our body, and we change our food, and we add in some gratitude, and, we put in some sitting with some meditation, maybe start with chair yoga instead of regular
Mhm.
yoga. Start, with the movement. When the body is strong enough, do some cleansing. Start with that. Get the debris out and start to put the whole food in, the organic foods, and lots of good water. Lots of water, makes all the difference in how we feel emotionally and physically. So, it wasn't overnight, but I had the second surgery about 8 months later, and you know what? That went like a breeze. I had that surgery at 9 in the morning. They had me walking by 11 and discharged by 2 in the afternoon. And I was hiking in 10 days. And it was just completely different, and had no issues, whatsoever. So I think I had a lot of fear around the first one because I was so, disengaged from the medical system. I didn't trust it, didn't believe in it, and I didn't want to go under the anesthesia. And, it was just, there's a lot of messiness there. So the second time I was like, "Okay, I need this. I'm gonna do it, and I'm gonna come back is the best Shirley." I used to call it, need to be my shiny Shirley again. And, so that was always in my mind.
That is so inspiring, especially for men and women who are aging or who are in this beautiful process of aging. And there's a lot of myth around aging that, of course, your body, it definitely at a somatic level, it starts to degenerate, but there's such beautiful ways of regenerating, you know.
Yes.
But definitely there is a connection between mind, body, and of course the soul also comes into the picture. And I think your healing journey is such a beautiful example of that. So I can really understand, and it's like the comeback, the homecoming.
It
Um,
was, yeah, and it has actually birthed so much more, because, with this story that I share now. Before I mean, like I said, I've been doing this forever. I've always been fit and strong and healthy and aged well and good weight and all this stuff, no trials, right? No real big trials, and then you go through something like this, and it also helps with your own, compassion, for others. And, like I never really thought about someone, having to have surgery or what that felt like. And I was like, oh, I get that. So my compassion increased. I ended up, creating the Wise Women of Wellness, my site. And that was primarily, wise women, being older, but of wellness and, kind of the commune and the desire to be more and to be healthy and to be our best selves. That's really what it's all about. It's not anyone else's agenda. It's what's our agenda. What are we? Who do we want to be? And that's what I always I say to people, who could you be? Could you be
Mm.
if you felt amazing? Who could you be if you decided you wanted a little bit more? Who could you be? And I believe that's a wonderful mantra to think about.
Mm. That's such a beautiful question. And it definitely brings a lot of self awareness. And it's like instead of comparing us with anyone else, we are just comparing our present version with the past version. Are we getting better who we are right now? How long we have come? What was my journey till this point, and how can I go further? And this brings to the um, tool mindfulness. It's not just a buzzword, but it's about presence, breath, mental stillness as well. So, how what role did all these play in your recovery journey, Dr. Shirley?
I'm sorry, what role did it play in what?
Yeah. So, what role did presence, breath, and
Mhm.
mental stillness play in your recovery journey?
Absolutely everything. I believe in the vibration of our bodies, and I believe when we're of a high vibration, of a high energy, that we are attracting a lot more to our lives. I think that, celebrating, these, smaller, wins of things that we, can do, make a big difference. And then again, with the gratitude as well, too. I mean, even, this morning I'm back, to yoga, but I'm able to do, not just a plank, but what's called, a chaturanga, which you're holding your body about 6 inches, off the ground, with hands and feet. And I haven't been able to do that in a couple years. So even now, I'm, still experiencing a little bit more. And then the yoga, of course, in my opinion, does keep us present and does keep us tied into the day, today. So all of that is absolutely, I don't think we can do it without it. I don't think, I love taking my supplements and my herbs, but that's not the answer. That's part of the pie. It's part
Mm.
of the physical pie. And then you've got, as you said, your mind and yourself and your spirit and all of those components that also need care, gentleness, and healing, and surrounding ourselves with joy. I think also choosing joy is a big component as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. It is our birthright. Choosing joy, it is our birthright, and
Yes.
it's definitely mindfulness is part of the pie, and I think that has been really beautifully explained by you. So, Dr. Shirley, before we wrap up, if our listeners they would like to connect with you, what would be the best way?
Yeah, I have a site, and it's a place where people they can connect, maybe choose what feels best. There's 5 different ways there, and I have my beautiful, beautiful Wise Woman of Wellness. That's my membership site, where we have a big inside community. People can have private consultations. I have free PDFs on cleansing and on building muscle, over the age of 50, and then people can follow me on Facebook too, because every day I do stories. So my site is drshirleysays.live/wise. It's drshirleysays.live/wise. And that gets people the opportunity to kind of look and see what my world is about. And if there's anything that resonates with them, they can contact me there.
Wonderful. I'll make sure to have all the links in the show notes. And this was such a powerful conversation, Dr. Shirley, because your story isn't just about recovery, it is about reclamation, it's about homecoming. Healing definitely is possible. It may not look like very um, flashy or linear or easy, but it is possible. And for every woman listening who feels like her spark has dimmed, there is definitely a way back. So thank you so much, Dr. Shirley, for
Oh,
sharing.
thank you so much. My pleasure.
So, to all the listeners out there, wherever you are in your journey, whether you are climbing mountains or climbing out of bed, may you feel seen, supported, and sparked. So, thank you to everyone for tuning into this episode of The Mindful Living. Until next time, breathe deep, move slowly, and live mindfully. Thank you.